Number 20. Alma bought a laptop computer at a store that gave a 20% discount off its original price. The total amount she paid to the cashier was P dollars, including an 8% sales tax on the discounted price. Which of the following represents the original price of the computer in terms of P? Okay, so looks very complicated, but this problem can be real simple if you guys just refer back to what you do all the time on Black Fridays, Christmas sales, and New Year sales and all that. Shopping, right? I mean, we all go shopping, or at least we've been to shopping once in a while, right? And think about all the sales that you were lucky enough to get, from all those stores you like. Let's think about the jacket you bought last time, right? That was 30% sales, whatever, 40% sales, Black Friday, right? What does that mean? So if the jacket was, let's say, $100, and if it was at 40% sales, you probably bought it for $60, or roughly $66-ish, including tax, right? Including tax. Now, how was this calculated? Well, first of all, let's think about the sales part, because that's easy. If it's 40% sales off of 100, that means you are discounted 40% of this price, aka 40% of $100 would be $40, and then you are discounted that amount from the original. So what you had to pay for after subtracting the $40 was $60, right? And this is what normal people do. This is what this is how almost everyone calculates the sales part. But for me, see, I like to be lazy in my calculation, and especially now that I'm not using a calculator in front of you guys through this video, I don't want to do two-step thing if it can be one step. Think about this. $100 is the original price and 40% is the sales you're getting. What does that mean? You can either say, hey, I'm getting 40% discount, or I can say, I'm actually paying 60% of the original price, right? Why is that? Because 40% is discounted, right? So there's 100% that I have to pay, but if I'm discounted 40% off of that, I'm actually paying 60% of the original price. So see what happens. I take the original $100, and then I'm paying 60% of the original, which leads to $60 once again. You see, these two are the same value. But this was a two-step way. What did I do first? I took the 40% of the original price, and then I said $40, and then I subtracted that $40 off of the original. Two-step way. I don't like that. I'm just going to say, if I'm getting 40% discount, I'm actually paying 60% of the original, so I can just go ahead and multiply that number off the bat and make it one-step way. Now, why did I just have to show you all this to do this problem? Because trust me, if you know this problem is going to be super simple. Let's go ahead and go back to this problem now. So it says the store gave a 20% discount. So how much of the original did Alma have to pay? Exactly, 80%. So she paid, or he, whoever, she, I think it's she paid 80% of the original price. So whatever the original price was, right? I don't know what that is, but what is P? The total amount she paid to the dollar was P. Okay, so that's not original price. So I'm going to say original price. I don't know, right? Original price. And she paid 80% of that, right? So 80% of the original price is the amount that it was on sales for, right? So that's this portion is the discounted price, right? So that's the discounted price. And then what else does she have to do? All right, the total amount she paid to the cashier was P dollars, including an 8% sales tax on the discounted price. Now, we all hate to pay that tax, right? So that's why we always look for that tax-free, duty-free online shops, right? I do that too, right? So if you think about this 8% sales tax, well, what happens when we have to pay tax? We actually pay more than what it says on the sign, right? If it says, hey, it's on sales for $49.99, you're not actually paying $50 out of your pocket, right? You're actually paying a little more than that because of the sales tax, right? So, if the tax is 8% on the discounted price, so this is the discounted price, if we are paying 8% sales tax, that means we are paying 8% more than the price itself, right? AKA, we are paying 108% of the price that it says on the banner, right? So, it says 8% sales tax on the discounted price. So, I'm actually paying 108% of the discounted price, AKA, this is a discounted price, I'm paying 108% of the discounted price. And this whole thing over here, that should lead to the total amount she paid to the cashier, which it says is P. Now, does that make sense? So once again, she paid 80% of the original price, and that was the discounted price. But then she had to pay 8% extra for the sales tax, so she had to pay 108% of the discounted price, right? So now let's go back. Which of the following represents the original price of the computer in terms of P? So we just need to solve for this then. So we're pretty much taking this equation up there and then setting it equal to just something like this. Original price is equal to something. So we just need to move things around. In order to cancel out this 0.80 and 0.108, I just need to divide this whole thing, right, by 0.8 and 1.08 on both sides, right? So that I can go ahead and cancel these, right? So what does this become? P over 0.8 times 1.08, which leads to my answer choice, D over here, right? I know I took a little long to explain this problem, but please be aware next time you have to deal with anything percentage related problem. When you're getting a discount, right? And also when you go shopping, when you're getting a discount, don't try to think in a way, oh, okay, 40% sales. So what's 40% of the original? Oh, it's $40. Let me subtract that off of 100. Oh, which gives me $60. Don't do this. If there's a 40% discount, that means you're paying 60% of the original. So just go ahead and multiply the 0.6 by the original price, not the two-step way that I honestly think it's really annoying. 21. The data in the table above were produced by a sleep researcher studying the number of dreams people recall when asked to record their dreams for 1 week. Group X consisted of 100 people who observed early bedtimes, and Group Y consisted of 100 people who observed later bedtimes. If a person is chosen at random from those who recalled at least one dream, what is the probability that the person belonged to Group Y? All right, let's read the question carefully once again, just the last part. If a person is chosen at random from those who recalled at least one dream, this is going to be an important part over here. Right there, right? From those who recalled at least one dream, what is the probability that the person belonged to Group Y, right? So what are we asked? We are asked to find the probability, if you just randomly pick a person, from those who recalled at least one dream. So let's stop there. They just said we're going to pick a person randomly from all the people who at least had one dream over here, right? Who recall at least one dream. AKA, we want to exclude some people out of this picture, which are over here, right? The none part, right? These people, these 36 people total, did not recall a single dream. And we have to pick a person from people who had at least one dream recalled. That's why we're just going to go ahead and completely disregard those guys out of our picture. When you guys are doing a problem something like this, make sure to do what I just did, right? Go ahead and mark it on your table so you're not confused when you're doing your problem, because there's so many numbers, so many variables. You don't want to touch upon all of them. And so if you can get rid of some, numbers out of your way, then go ahead and do that first, because it'll make it much easier to look at in terms of the problem. What is the probability that a person belongs to group Y? So we are going to count all these people, right? Let me use a different color. We will count all these people. These people are what we're going to be looking at. So let's first look at the total, because probability is always what? What I want, or what the question wants, over total, right? So let's look at the total. What's my total? 36 is out of my picture. So 39 and 125, that is 164. So that's going to be my total. You can also just go ahead and do 200 minus 36, which will give you 164. And then we want to find out the probability that the person belongs to group Y. So how many people are in group Y in this case? Group Y is over here. 21 is out of my picture. 11 and 68, which is 79. That's what I want on top. So 79 over 164, which leads to my answer choice, C. Very simple problem if you just first went ahead and got rid of that none part out of your picture. All right, number 22. Excuse the position of the question. The table took up too much space. So for number 22 and 23, I'll be writing the question out on the right side. All right, number 22. Which of the following best approximates the average rate of change in the annual budget for agriculture and natural resources in Kansas from 2008 to 2010? So we are on this column, agriculture and natural resources. And we are more specifically looking at 2008, 2009, and 2010, aka we're not going to look at the 2007 data, okay? So, oh, whoops, this is missing the zeros. All right, so we want to look at the average. Okay, first of all, it's average rate of change in the annual budget. So rate of change. So first of all, we want to look at the change, and then we want to look at the average, right? So a lot of people get confused with the term, the average rate of change in the annual budget. It sounds super complicated, but focus on the words you already know. You know what average means, and you know what change means. So let's just focus on that and see what we can do from that point, right? So let's first go ahead and look at the change, right? So 2008 to 2009 for agriculture and natural resources, let's look at the change, right? It went from 358,708. Once again, be careful that all these numbers are in thousands of dollars, right? I'm going to take care of that later on, but let's just do the numbers as written for now. So it went from 358,708 to 485,807, right? Which is roughly, I'm not going to be exact, which is roughly about 130,000 difference, right, in here, right? Once again, I should add the 3 zeros at the end, right? So let me not forget. So from 2008 to 2009, the change was about plus 130,000. And then let's look at from 2009 to 2010. What was the change? 2009 was 485,807, and 2010 was 488,106. The change is roughly about plus, I don't know, like 200, 300, whatever, right? Close enough. So the total change then, the total change was, both of these combined, so 130,000 and 200-ish, right? I'm just approximating because I'm not currently using calculator, but you guys can go ahead and calculate the exact number. Just punch it into your calculator, right? So I get about 130,000, but it says the average rate of change. How do we find average? The sum divided by however many things you have, right? So in this case, the sum divided by however many things would be however many years of change that we just went through, right? 2008 to 2009, that's 1 year. And 2009 to 2010, that's another year, right? 1 year. So we got 1 year, so total of 2 years. So we'll divide by 2, which would give me roughly about $65,000. But once again, all the numbers on the table are in thousands of dollars, so I'll add the extra 3 zeros at the end, which leads to my answer choice B. So it looks pretty complicated, but it's actually quite simple. It's just asking you to, first of all, find the change between the years and then average them and see what you get. Number 23. Of the following, which program's ratio of its 2007 budget to, whoa, that's missing a D. 2007 budget to 2010 budget is closest to the human resources program's ratio of its 2007 budget to 2010 budget? So let's first go ahead and look at 2007 to 2010 budget for human resources and see what it is roughly. 2007 to 2010. Okay, well, let me just be, approximating roughly closest to what I can see. I'm going to roughly estimate that to 4 million, and I'm going to roughly estimate that to 6 million, right? So it's 4 million to 6 million, which is 4 to 6 ratio, okay? If I simplify it down, 2 to 3 ratio. So it should be roughly about 2 to 3 ratio. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the choices, and if it doesn't look even close to 2 to 3 ratio, I'm just going to simply skip it because I don't want to waste too much time going over all these choices. So agriculture and natural resources, let's go check it for 2007 to 2010. Agriculture here, 2007 is this, 2010 is this. That doesn't look close enough, whatever, off. I'm not going to cross it just yet, but I'm not going to take a close look because I don't have all the time in the world to go over in details of every single number. Education, 2007 to 2010. That looks about 2. That looks about 3 million. Oh, that looks pretty good. So I'll keep. Highways and transportation, 2007 to 2010. 1.4 to 1.7, not quite. Public safety, 2007 to 2010. That's like 2.6 to 4.6. That's like, not as close. Education, close enough. B. You guys see what I did? I didn't actually take all those numbers and actually put them in ratio, like simplify it down like this, and see if it was close to 2 to 3 ratio. Because that just takes too much time. Just go ahead and roughly skim it, because for the sake of the test SAT, it should be clear enough for this type of a question for you to not waste too much time and still figure out the right answer. 24. Which of the following is an equation of a circle in the xy plane with center 0, 4 and a radius with endpoint 4/3 and 5? All right, so I hope everybody remembers the circle equation, which is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared, of which we know h and k is the center, right? So in this case, h is 0 and k is 4, right, based on the given information. So we can just go ahead and plug that in right off the bat, and it's going to be x minus 0 squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to r squared, so it comes down to x squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to r squared. So just based on this, we can go ahead and get rid of some choices, which are B and D, right? Because they both have plus 4, right, instead of minus 4 that we're looking for. Okay, now I just need to figure out the radius, and I'll tell you, my friends, there are 2 different ways to find the radius in this case. Since we're not given the radius, but we are given the coordinates, right? So how would it look, first of all? On a graphing coordinate, it would look something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it'll look something like this, with the center 0, 4, which is over here, the center, and then endpoint 4/3 and 5. So 4/3 is like right there, and 5 is like right there. Okay, so that's my radius. And then the circle should look something like that, right? So something like that. Now, first of all, the very common way, the very school algebraic way to do this problem is to do distance formula, right? Which everybody hates, including myself, but I'll just do it for the sake of whoever's more comfortable with this method or whoever just likes to take longer way for whatever reason, right? Okay, so x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, all square root, right? So I'll assign that as x1, x2, x1, y1, and that as x2, y2. So x2 is, 4/3 minus 0 squared plus 5 minus 4 squared, which leads me to 4/3 squared, which is 16 over 9. And 5 minus 4 is 1. 1 squared is 1. That's, let me say that's 9 over 9. So 25 over 9, all square root. That's 5 over 3. Now, we should be able to answer our question right off the bat. But let me just show you the other method first, and then we'll circle the right answer. So this takes a long time, and plus on top of that, who's got all the time in the world to remember the distance formula in the back of their head, right? So if you forget, right, because we forget a lot of formulas. If you forget this distance formula, there's another way to do this, and in fact, I would say is much easier. Just make a triangle out of this guy. So you see how you have that line, the radius? Just make triangle like that. And let me zoom in that triangle for you, okay? So this triangle, I'm going to zoom in now, okay? So let me zoom that in. And then we know this point is 0, 4, because that was a center. And that end point we have over there is 4/3 and 5. And obviously, since this is a straight line, and that's a straight line, the 4/3 x value still falls here. What I mean by that is over there, right there. Still, the x value is 4/3 there. And then, since this is a straight line, the y is 4, so it's also 4 here, aka right there, right? Straight line, that's still 4. So, you got all the values here. So, from 4 to 5, that's a distance of 1. From 0 to 4/3, that's a distance of 4/3. What can we do? Pythagorean theorem, right? So, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. So 1 squared is 1, aka 9 over 9. Trust me, it's going to be the same. And then 4/3 squared, we did that here. It was 16 over 9, which is c squared. 25 over 9 is c squared. Square root of both sides, c is equal to 5 over 3. It still gives you the same answer, right? 5/3, 5/3. It still gives you the same answer. Whichever way you like the best. If you like to do the distance formula, go ahead. But if you don't like the distance formula, you don't like to write out all this long formula, just go ahead and make a triangle and just run the Pythagorean theorem. It should do it just as well as this one. So we found the radius. Radius is 5/3, right? So we just plug it in here now then. It's r squared though, but r is 5/3, so it's going to be 5/3 squared, which will be 25 over 9, right? So at the end, we should have 25 over 9. Based on that, what can I get rid of? I can get rid of this guy because 5/3 is not r squared. That is just r. My answer choice is A. X squared plus y minus 4 squared is equal to 25 over 9. 25. The equation above expresses the approximate height h in meters of a ball t seconds after it is launched vertically upward from the ground with an initial velocity of 25 meters per second. Approximately how many seconds will the ball hit? NG. Wait a minute. Number 25. The equation above expresses the approximate height, h in meters, of a ball t seconds after it is launched vertically upward from the ground with an initial velocity of 25 meters per second. Woo. after approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? All right, so whole bunch of information, whole bunch of terms that you guys are not too familiar with. It's fine, just plug in whatever seems to be appropriate. But let's look. The only thing that we see as a missing variable here is h and t, right? Of which we are asked what? Approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground after, right? So we are looking for this t, right? So that's what we're looking for. So we just need to figure out what h is, and we'll be good to go, right? Now let's look. After approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? What did they say h is? Let's go back. Height h in meters, right, of a ball t seconds after is, right. The equation above expresses the approximate height h. So that's the height after the ball is launched vertically upward. Imagine if the ball hit the ground, what's the height? If the ball is like 5 meters up, the h is 5, right? If the ball is like 10 meters up there, the h is 10. If the ball hit the ground, what's the h? 0, right? So what can we say about h when the ball hit the ground? The h is 0 because it's down there, right? The height h is the approximate height when the ball is shot vertically upward. But when it hit the ground, the height must be 0. So to this equation, we can go ahead and plug in 0 for the t, for the h, once again, because the ball hit the ground, right? It's not up in the air, right? So then this problem becomes real simple. You only got t's to solve. Let's go ahead and move this over here, right? So subtract 25t on both sides. You see why I'm doing this, because I mean, yeah, we've got t squared and then the t, so it looks like some sort of a factoring or, you know, completing the squares or quadratic formula, all that. But, I mean, if I just move it here and make it look something like this, I can go ahead and cancel 1 t's on both sides, right? And then I can cancel the negatives. So this becomes 25 is equal to 4.9t. Hey, come on. Can we just say that's 5, right? So 25 is equal to 5t. Divide by 5 on both sides. T should be roughly about 5. And the question also says after approximately how many seconds? My answer is D, 5. Once again, I saw the 4.9 and I see this 25 and I'm like, okay, well, they probably want me to approximate this 4.9 into a 5. Make your life easier. 26. Katerina is a botanist studying the production of pears by 2 types of pear trees. She noticed that type A trees produced 20% more pears than type B trees did. Based on Katerina's observation, if the type A trees produced 144 pears, how many pears did the type B trees produce? Okay, so let's go ahead and think about this as a picture, as sort of a diagram, right? Because pictures are much easier to look at than numbers, right? So let me just draw 2 trees. That's a very terrible tree, but who cares, right? I'll draw A just a little bigger because apparently it produced a little more. Yeah, so something like that. Okay, so that's type A and that's type B, okay? What did they say about it? They said type A trees produced 20% more pears than type B trees did. So if I want to say type B produced X many pears, then A produced 20% more, aka 120% of the number of pairs in type B, right? So aka 120% of X, aka 1.2 times X, right? Does that make sense? We went over this percentage thing in the other problem before, right? I talked about how, you can think of that as a shopping, right? So 20% more just means 120% of the other one. So A was 120% of B. So I said B as X and A as 1.2X, okay? And what else do I know? If the type A trees produce 144 pairs, so that was 144 here, how many pairs did the type B trees produce? So we're looking for what number was here, right? So can we just solve for x? Because 1.2x is 144, right? So 1.2x is 144. I'm going to have to divide by 1.2 on both sides, but since I hate decimals, let me just move 1 on both. So this becomes 12x is equal to 144 with the 0 there. And divide by 12 on both sides, cancel the 12, it becomes 120. So x is 120. Hey, we said this is just x, so over here is 120. My answer is choice B. Very, very simple question.